Boom! We are back. I love just saying boom when the show starts. What is good? Happy Monday to our master debaters out there. Holla, holla to all of you out there. Special shout out to our Patreon members. We appreciate you. For those of you who may not have seen the post, the Patreon bonus episode went up today. And so that is out there for all of you Patreon members out there who are eligible for it. Also, I went ahead and carved out a couple of pages from my film, my pilot, or whatever I want to call it, whatever they're going to call it, that I'm shooting right now. And I threw that up there as well for the Patreon members that are able to get their eyes onto that as well. So I think we gave you guys some good stuff. The Patreon was a lot of fun. Deon and I did it on Saturday, late afternoon, early evening, but we had a lot of fun, man. We touched on everything. So make sure you guys jump out there and check that out. And let us know if you guys are listening or watching the Patreon, because I throw it up as audio and video. Give us a word, some feedback. Let us know how you're feeling about it, if you're digging it. And then let me know what you think about the couple of pages that I threw up there, too, from my film that's in production right now. So Betrayal is what it's called. So we'd love to hear about that, too. All right, well, I see Alan is in. What's good with you, bro? Thank you for jumping in on YouTube. And then I see Facebook user saying hi, giving us some high fives. Not sure who that is, but Deon will tell me, I'm sure.
I am looking right now. I was trying to share the show, and all of a sudden something weird popped up. But that hi is from Chelsea. So what up, Chelsea?
What up, Chelsea? What up, Chelsea? Speaking of Chelsea, your question is one of the ones we will be discussing today. Last week, Deon and I decided we want to try to do it once a month if we can. Throw something out there to you guys, because you guys are such instrumental members of the show, to let us know what it is you would like for us to speak about. And we had some great ones. Roxy threw up one, and it was so detailed and so well thought out that it was going to need homework. And Deon and I did not have the time for the homework, so forgive us, Roxy. But it is something that maybe, Roxy, maybe you want to come and sit in our third chair for a couple of minutes one day and kind of discuss with us in front of everyone, and we can kind of make that interesting. So I'm not sure if Roxy's watching yet, but hopefully she will be soon. I see Mary's jumped on with us. What's good, Mary? And then I see Facebook you says, hey, fam. So hello to you, fam.
That's Kathleen.
All right, Kathleen. And Kathleen has the second one that we will be talking about today. So we'll be touching on two. We're going to try to give equal time to both of them. But you guys know how you guys are. You control the show. And so you guys will decide exactly how long we spend on each one of them up to a certain point, that is. Deon, I've been doing all this round and talking, trying to get all the information out to them. What is good, bro? What is good?
Happy Monday to you, my brother, from another mother. Easter just passed, and I gotta say, I saw a lot of terrible church videos of black men carrying crosses and getting whipped by people of the congregation. And I just want to say that if God was in your church while you was carrying a cross, he would be shaming all of y'all. Stop reenacting the crucifixion of Christ, for the love of God. Please stop doing that, y'all. I am so sick and tired of seeing these terrible videos. I remember one year my dad did the reenactment, and I'm just sitting there. They had to do rehearsals, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. We all know the story. Those poor kids look terrified at that man getting fake whooped with fake blood all over him, coming down the aisle. We don't need to do that anymore. So just stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
That's right up there with, for me, I won't watch any more slave movies. I am all whipped out on the slave movies. All right. Yeah. I don't need to see any more black people in cages or ships, rowing the ships from here to there and whipped and sold. And I don't need to see any more of it. I am so over it. And it's not just because I can't stand Will Smith anymore and I refuse to watch Emancipation. I was over it before that. It seems like there's only certain movies they think that we will go see. Slave movies and hood movies for the most part. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I watch 12 Years a Slave maybe once a year just to remind myself how much of a good person Brad Pitt is. But other than that...
Why do you need to remind me how good a person Brad Pitt is?
because then I see Fight Club and I'm like, God, I hate this motherfucker. This Fight Club is such a terrible movie.
It's not their It's not the best, but even though it's not the best for either one of them, it has some quotable lines in it that people still quote to this day. Obviously, everyone's favorite one is you can't talk about Fight Club and all that bullshit. I got to keep it secret. Anyway, I see Larry's jumped in and say, "Hey everyone, what's good, Larry? Thank you for jumping on with us. Got a great show lined up for you. Like I said before, Deon, you got any dates coming up? Anything coming up you want to mention to folks out there?
I'm gonna be in Nashville the 21st and 22nd for the Nashville Comedy Festival with live podcast on the Pat Down. So we'll be doing that in 2 weeks down in Nashville at Zany's Nashville. I think those shows are sold out, but we do have some tickets left for the live podcast. So go to Zany's comedy.com/Nashville or whatever it is to get your tickets if you're in the area.
I'd say congrats on that. I always love to see you get on the road and tell some jokes and make some money at the same time. Slinging them shirts and them jokes. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, gotta sell the shirts. That's the moneymaker right there.
This Facebook user here says White Claw needs to sponsor y'all already. Don't we know it? We're working on it.
Agreed.
We're working on it. But first we got to become somebody first. Don't nobody want to sponsor you until they think you somebody. It's like getting credit. I'll break it down for everyone here. It's like getting credit. No one wants to give you credit till you already got credit. No one wants to give you a job till you get some job experience. And that's what it's like when it comes to getting the big boy sponsors.
Let me tell you, I remember trying to get my first job. Oh, you need more work experience. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get it if y'all won't hire a motherfucker to get it?
You ain't getting it here. We'll figure it out.
I couldn't get a job at Blockbuster. I couldn't get a job at Kroger. I couldn't get a job at the local grocery store. Nobody would give me a chance.
And then the first person who did.
I worked there for 3 years.
See, they could have had a good worker.
I wanted to work, man. My first job was Georgetown Market Health Food Store. It'll be their 46th year in business, 47th in November. Yeah. So family-owned businessman, still know the owner. He's always been good to me. So I'm going back in November when they celebrate. If I'm home, I'll be going back to buy some stuff at the store.
That's nice. So, that's nice. Still shooting the film. We'll be back at that. We'll be sending something out for extra. So if you're in the Phoenix area, looking to be an extra in a film, I will be looking for you to come out and hang out and kind of just chill out, drink, maybe eat. Let us film you. You got to sign some paperwork, some legal shit, so you don't try to come back and sue me for using a face that nobody cared about until you was in the film. so all of a sudden I'm gonna come up. I was just getting ready to say something. I lost it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Hey, guys, remember, go ahead, be a part of the show. Don't forget to hit those emoticons. And if you haven't already, click that share button. All right, let's get this show underway. First topic comes from Kathleen K. And I'm going to read it for everyone who might not have missed it, because I know I post and Deon posts, and you guys, everyone doesn't have a lot of time to see everything. So I want to make sure that I go ahead and read this out for everyone here, and especially for our folks who are listening on the podcast. I forgot. Shout out to you guys. Forgive me. I should have said it at the top. Shout out to you guys for listening to us each and every week. Go ahead and share the podcast. I see the numbers growing on the podcasting. So someone out there is liking it. So go ahead, keep on sharing it. We appreciate you. Thank you for it. And don't forget to go ahead and click that subscribe button, as well as for our folks on YouTube who watch it live and then come back and check us out later. Those numbers are growing too. So thank you very much. Slowly but surely, Deon and I are going to be somebody. So thank you guys for helping us get there. All right, first question comes from our longtime master debater, Kathleen K. And she says, does recognizing the difference in a group highlight the significance of, or does it divide the group? For example, does pointing out the group of astronauts from Artemis 2 has a woman and a black man, as a ton of news outlets have pointed it out, show the significance of how special that is? Or does it cause a divide because they're focusing on that difference rather than how everyone in that group are exceptional scientists, etc.? I know where I stand, and we want to hear from you, Kathleen, on how you stand. On where you stand, I should say. But she says, I know where I stand was a conversation that came up at the school this week. And for people who don't know, Kathleen is a teacher. Thought it could be an interesting discussion. So We thought it would be too, Kathleen. Dion and I kind of, without talking about it, because we like for what we say to be fresh to you and to one another, thought it would be a good one. And I know Dion has some stuff to kind of spit about it. Dion, what you got?
So for me, I think the biggest um, the biggest point that she made in the post. Let me pull it up here. Does recognizing does recognizing the differences in a group highlight the significance of, or does it divide the group? As a man, right? In general, society teaches you certain things of how you are supposed to behave and how you are supposed to act. There's norms for you, right? And so when we talk about a group of exceptional scientists, there's a reason why we don't see them all as simply exceptional scientists. So in this particular context for me, I think highlighting the differences in a group should, in theory, strengthen that group and its significance. Uh, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I know here in America that when you point out a difference, most people look at it as a negative thing. And I think that is our biggest issue is that our differences are not supposed to be negative. They're supposed to be what they are, just differences. So whether you're tall or short, whether you're black or white, whether you're heavy or thin, it shouldn't matter. But the context of those descriptions in our society cause issues when they're brought up. And a lot of times they do take away from the positivity of whatever you bring to the group. So it's like, oh, we hired a black guy, but is he the right type of black guy? Or we hired a woman, but is it the right type of woman? And those types of things where in a perfect society, it would be great if you could just say, yeah, that's another scientist, and you wouldn't have to quote unquote recognize the differences. I think that is the utopia that I always talk about that we'll never get to, according to you, Sidney.
Yes, according to me, that is a utopia we would never get to. Um, Kathleen, or I'm sorry, Kathleen says that sounds awesome. I assume she's talking about our numbers increasing. Maybe I'm wrong. Kathleen, correct me. Alan says I'm going to Miss Pat's comedy show in Washington State, and then Marissa is on with you. Says hi, sorry I'm late. Hey Marissa, no worry about being late. Just that you're here. So thank you, and you. I know who the other you is for watching. Look, um, I'm kind of with you, Dion, to the point that I think it is, and I don't think it's just in this country, but I don't live in other countries, so I can only speak about this one. But I believe it's human nature. That's why I don't think it's just in America. I think it is human nature that when something is pointed out about another person's uh, description, whether they're black or female, and you're not a part of that group, I think you become irritated by it. And I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I do think it's human nature because I think it starts to bring up that whole thing of why are you jamming this down my throat? Why every time I turn around, this has to be in front of me? I hear it a lot with black. I hear it a lot with black men, with the fact that more gay men, gay black men specifically, are being highlighted on TV shows. I've heard it from white people actually, who I know who spotted a mixed couple in my film and thought for whatever reason that I had a ton of mixed couples in there and asked me why did I when there was actually only one. So I do think it becomes a problem for certain people because human nature is just the way that it is. I'm
But
sorry.
see, but that's only because they're in the dominant group. If you're a gay black man and you're starting to see more gay black men representation, for you, your whole life hasn't been that. It's been the other. And so that's my frustration is when it's happening for somebody that's not in the majority group. The fact that you can say, oh, it's being jammed down my throat and I don't like to see that. Well, how do you think they felt the entire time? When you're on the outside looking in and you finally get in, people on the inside are telling you, oh, well, this is not the way we do things around here. It's kind of bullshit. Like, as somebody who's watched white men dominate everything for so many years, and then all of a sudden there's more opportunities for non white men to hear them say, well, I'm tired of this diversity being jammed down my throat. How do you think we feel about seeing white man after white man after white man after white man after white man become president of the United States? Like, so that same attitude that you have towards the quote unquote diversity is the same way every diverse person feels about the status quo.
But I would say this, and this is why I have always said, and I think I've said on this show multiple times, you have to be careful when certain cards are played. When you are part of a minority group, you want to make sure you're on the right side of it for one when you play that card. And the other thing is, you don't want to start to aggravate the ones who are not a part of that group, especially if they're the ones who are in power at that time. I think there is a a level that any group will go with you until they feel like there is, again, not to overuse it, until it's being shoved down their throat at every turn. So I think it's always, you always have to be careful. And Kathleen, I don't like for it to be highlighted for another reason, because I would love to think that with 2023 that we can get to a point where we can just see people for whatever it is that they're doing, as opposed to having to highlight woman, black man, Asian man, or what have you. We can all see with our eyes whatever separates this person or those people from this other group of people, and for this matter, for the Artemis too. Yeah.
Well, if you're in power and the people, the idea that something's being jammed down your throat, well, you're in control. Your comfort zone is the mean to which everybody's got to conform. You know, it's all about comfort and conformity. Once you get in this space, you have to do it the way we do it, or we get you out of here. That's I mean, that's the typical way things work. If you are on the outside looking in and then you finally get in, the chances of you disrupting how the in has been acting for whatever reason is slim to none. You either assimilate or you're ejected, one way or the hard way, right? I mean, we've seen it in politics, we've seen it in conquering of other countries, where it's you either become part of the group or you're out of here. And so to highlight the differences, to say, um, I'm this supreme scientist, but I'm also a black woman, and for people to say, oh, well, why did you have to bring that up? Because it matters. And the fact that you're not comfortable with it mattering is the issue.
Well, I would argue this actually before well, let me argue this, and then we'll go to Kathleen's comments, because she's sharing with us, and we would love for you, the rest of you, to share with us, Larry, Alan, Marissa, if you guys have anything you want to share. We would love to hear from you. Here's the other thing I would say: the only people that it really seems is going to matter to, I believe, are the people who are members of that group. So if you are a female or a group of females, and there is a female scientist, a female astronaut, that matters to your group. But I also think that group can see that there's a female there without it being highlighted repeatedly by media outlets. So, what are you helping when you constantly highlight these things?
You're giving people the feeling that the mainstream people have had all along. It's a type of an inclusion that if you've never had that and now you know what it feels like, to finally see somebody who looks like you represent the things that you wanted to be, but you never saw yourself in. So whether it be the first black president, the first female vice president, those things actually matter to the people who are like, how come I've never seen anybody who looks like me in that job?
Yeah, but can you not see that without being told, and without the world having to be told repeatedly? You can see that, and no, and all jokes aside, listen.
It's a reminder to all those other people who have had that position that you aren't the only ones who can do it, and that there are different. That's what I'm saying. It's the highlighting of the difference is not supposed to be the problem,
Okay,
and
let's go
it's
to Kathleen.
only.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's go to Kathleen's comments here. She says, "For me, the fact that there isn't a bigger diversity in the group is the problem, actually." Then she says, "We pointed out because it is significant, but if we were giving more opportunities to make things more diverse, it wouldn't be a divisive issue." And then she ends it out with exactly on point, Sid. And Kathleen, I got to tell you, you're the first one on the wall with that one there. So nice work. Kathleen has made it to the wall. And because my name was included in the positive matter, trifecta. So well done, Kathleen. And I expect all of you to be applauding wherever you are. All right. So go ahead, Deon. What are you going to say?
No, I think that a lot of the conversation that needs to be had isn't being had in terms of the majority group recognize why it's significant to the minority group. It's not necessarily a negative thing, where they come in and say, I'm the first such and such to do such and such. And the people who have been doing it the whole time are like, it's not a big deal to them. They don't recognize that their norm isn't everyone else's norm. And the fact that now that there's been somebody to represent and that can become the norm for that group of people as well, I think that's important.
I think there's only certain times that race has to be highlighted when describing something. So, take for instance, when I talk about Not As Debatable, whether it's just you and I hosting it, or when we've had Warren B and the other guy in the third chair hosting it, I've always said, yeah, there's three black guys who host a show, but I did that because I thought it was important to for them to know not only are there three black guys, but we are different. I'm a conservative. Deon is a socialist, and then whoever's been in the third chair has more often been an independent or I'm sorry, a Democrat of sorts. So that's where I think something like that is important because for someone to see us sitting on a park bench or to see our faces on here and not know what was going on and just see Not As Debatable, the first thing they're going to think is, I bet you both those black guys are saying the exact same thing on that particular topic. There's no one to push back on them. And lo and behold, if you were to watch the show, you would see that anywhere from, I'm going to say about 7% of the time, Deon and I disagree. Like even on this topic, oddly enough, we kind of disagree on it. I think we're pushing back on each other a little bit here and there. But I think that is why it's important to explain to people about not only, yeah, there's three black guys, but let me explain to you about the show. For something like this, I do not, oh, you just have a group of scientists. And the fact that you have two black people, or one black people, whatever she said, and an Asian is not that important. To me, all it does is another step in the wrong direction as far as trying to highlight these things over and over. And another thing is we have to stop celebrating these things as if we're just happy to have it. If we could do some more things on the backside, behind the scenes type things to make sure, or to at least try to ensure that people, um, black, Asian, or whatnot, having better opportunity to be in that position is one thing. But to highlight the one or two, to me, it gives a false sense of, oh, we're just happy. We're so happy. We got one over there. That is so great. Almost to the same extent that I felt like the second time around when Barack Obama got voted into office. I felt again like, oh, they're just so happy to have one in there. We don't have to worry about it for another few centuries. I mean, if you get what I'm saying.
I do understand what you're saying, but my pushback to you would be is the reason why it's important is not the reason why you should be upset by it. So I think that to say it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't have to matter to you. The diversity, if the diversity doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. That's great. But for all the people who are in that group who see a new avenue for the first time, themselves represented, that is a big deal to them. And to say we should stop highlighting that, to me, is one of the most ridiculous things that you could ever say. Why would you take away something special for someone else because it doesn't matter to you? Like it's one thing to say,
Take it
you
from
know what,
who? I'm sorry. Take it from who?
from the people who are celebrating it, to just say, oh, stop shoving this down my throat, stop making it a big deal. Well, it is a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal to you. If you don't care, you don't care. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no problem with you saying it doesn't matter to me. But to say to the other person who's celebrating it, oh, I'm tired of you jamming this down my throat, or why do I need to know that there's diversity in the room? Because to the people who are getting in that room for the first time, it matters. Or it might not even be their first time, but to increase the numbers, like Tiger Woods is a perfect example. I remember when he first came out, and all these people were like, "Man, now black people are going to take over golf," and it was like, "Well, you got to have money to go golfing, right?" And I don't know hardly any black people who went to the golf range more than once or twice after they saw them club prices. It was like, you know what, Tiger Woods, you do your thing, good for you, but I can't afford to go 18 holes every weekend. So this whole idea of representation and diversity in a group. I mean, you can look at what Serena and Venus had to go through. As two black women in the tennis circuit coming up, getting into these places for the first time, and all the pushback that they had to deal with when they just wanted to, in their eyes, they were just like every other tennis player. It wasn't that big of a deal to them. They were just doing their job. But for everybody else, you could see the pushback that they were having to go through.
But I would say
And it
this is,
shouldn't be that way.
but I would say this as well though. So one, I'm with you on golf and tennis. I have enjoyed both, um, but I grew up in an area that allowed me to enjoy both. And so I'm with you that that is not wide open. I mean, you look at some of even today, let alone when we were growing up, they were lucky to even have a basketball court in a lot of neighborhoods in the inner city, with the way rims were being taken off and stolen, and the cities were not taking care of parks and so on and so forth. So I'm completely with you there. Um, I do think when it comes to Tiger and Venus and Serena, they are such in a world all on their own, the three of them, not only because of their talent, because there were a lot of kids. They weren't the only kids golfing. They were definitely, I'm sure, I know for a fact, Tiger wasn't the only black kid. He might have been one of few, but he wasn't the only one golfing. And those two were not the only ones playing tennis in the entire world or in this entire country at that time. But but the three of them sit in the world on their own because they were able to take it and to excel and be so great at it, and that's why we love them so much. And people inside of the black race and outside of the black race love them. What I find interesting about both of those scenarios, though, and tell me if you agree, and Master Debaters, you let us know as well. They were both raised by black men who, whether or not, I can't say they saw the greatness right away, but I feel like both parents thought, you know what, this is a little thumb at white America who says that black kids shouldn't be able to and can't be able to. My kids are going to do at the best of their ability. Now, the ability that these three individuals ended up having, I don't think their fathers could have ever seen it, but it is an interesting story to have three kids, two black fathers who both thought, fuck what everybody else thinks. My kids are playing these sports that normally black kids don't play.
But see, I think that them being the outliers because of the fact that most black excellence is geared towards football and basketball. They're much
Mm-hmm.
easier access sports.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can highlight, and just for this particular example, I'm sure it's different in engineering than it is in youth sports. But the fact that you have so many amazingly talented young black athletes only doing football and basketball, and then you get a few baseball players. Back in the day, there used to be a lot more black players in uh, Major League Baseball, but the money of the NFL and NBA
Yeah.
significantly has kind of shifted that around to where most of the minority players in the Major League Baseball come from the Caribbean area somewhere, whether Puerto Rican or Dominican or whatever. But I think the fact that there is excellence out there. It's just the opportunity for that excellence to grow in an environment is so slim. Tiger Woods' dad is a perfect example of, you know what, I'm going to get my son because he was into golf. That was his thing, and he was going to do whatever it took. Same thing with Charles Williams, getting his two daughters to go play tennis. It was like that was his thing. And so to have leadership in that role to be like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get my kids the opportunities that they need. And then maybe, hopefully, that they can open the floodgates for other parents and other children, I think is important, whether it's sports or mathematics or science or engineering, whatever it is.
I think all of it is important. I believe inclusiveness is important. Um, but I guess where you and I differ slightly is how much it should be highlighted and the reasoning for it being highlighted. For the media, it's being highlighted because they think this is what's going to drive for them. And as we've talked about a million times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, I'm going to share which one of them it is, all of them. Hell, we even talk about this show. All anyone cares about is how can we drive this so we can get sponsorship, so more and more and more and more and more money. So I get why they do it, while it's annoying. I don't but I didn't need to be told that Tiger was black. I didn't need to be told Serena and Venus were black. I didn't need to be told Barack Obama was black. I could already see it. And so that is the point I'm trying to make. Is not something. It's not a subject that needs to be exhausted over and over and over. For me,
But
even for hold on one second, even for people who may find some kind of pride in it, you can still see it without being told over and over and over again.
and so my pushback to the B was the reason why it is being highlighted is for the people who don't see it, for the people who don't understand it, to understand the significance of it and why it matters to those. It's like the people on the inside looking out, going, "Why is this such a big deal?" It's a highlight to let you know. Well, look around. Everybody else in there looks exactly like you. This is the first person who doesn't look like you to get into where you are. Your mainstream, what you've seen your entire life, is becoming that person's mainstream for the very first time. And that's a big deal. If the roles were reversed and we got a Larry Bird is a perfect example. Anytime you talk about basketball, some white person is going to bring up Larry Bird. And there's a
Okay.
reason why they do that. One, he was excellent. And two, he's one of the very few white guys to dominate in a black era. Like, so that significance matters. It's not supposed to be a negative thing. And I think that is where my frustration comes in is every time you bring up the idea of inclusivity and diversity, it's always looked at, oh, we gotta learn a new agenda. Oh, they're shoving it down our throat. Oh, they're trying to make me change. It's like, no, this has nothing to do with you. It's for everybody else. You can keep living your life the same way you've been living it. Now you just have to be mindful that you're not the only person in this space.
You guys keep comments coming in. I know we are on this one here, and we're having a good time talking about. I know I'm having a good time talking about, but we want you guys to be included as well. All right. Let's see. Facebook user says the title of your show lets us know what the show is about, and I would say I can't see who that is. I apologize, but what I would say to that is yes and no. Yes, the title you would think would, but trust me, having two chocolate brown dudes on the screen speaking, and then if you've never watched the show before, and I throw up what the subject matter is going to be about, trust me, if it looks like the word RACE, they're thinking exactly what this show is not about, even though it's called Not As Debatable. So again, that's why I always try to make sure I explain that to people. I have people. Deon, I'm sorry, I don't. I want to use this person's name. Can you see the Facebook users who said that? Can you tell me their name? Is that possible?
Jeanette Trotter.
Okay, hey Jeanette, trust me, I have people that I know, non-black people, that whenever, like when we had Chris Spangle on a few weeks back, whatever that was, I got a lot of people who hit me up on private message. Hey, so you had a white person on tonight. Hey, so you had a white person on tonight. Hey, who's the white guy? Hey, it's about time you had a white guy. Hey, this is what people are consumed with, only with what they can see, not with what they can hear. So much so that Deon, I've had people hit me up and say Deon was racist based off of some of the things
I've
that
had those
Deon,
same people hit me up and say that as well.
right, just based off what Deon was saying, but he's not saying anything any different or crass or anything when it comes to race. But it just happens because it comes out of that face that is what they hear, is that they hear it how they want to hear it. So um, again, that was a long explanation that I was trying to give, but yes. All right. Let's see here. Kathleen says, this is exactly why I love this show. You two/3 are so different, and the academic discourse that comes out of the discussion is what brings me here. Thank you, Kathleen. And guess what, Kathleen? You are back on the wall again. I don't know who's going to take Kathleen off the wall, but she made it on again. Kudos to Kathleen. I mean, I don't mind saying it, Kathleen. No one's gonna hear it, but you seem to be really kicking everybody's ass tonight. I don't know what's going on, but don't tell nobody I said that. All right, the show is about, and I don't know what that emoji is. I have no idea.
It's a black face palm from Jeanette Trotter, a black
Okay,
woman face palm. The
all
show
right.
is about shaking her head. I don't.
I don't know. Alan Lawson says, "Well, I actually agree
If
with
you're
both."
if you're still watching, Jeanette, could you explain that to us, please?
Alan Lawson says, "Well, I actually agree with both of you guys because of the fact that equal opportunity is a problem and it shouldn't be. Don't matter if you're a man or a woman or any race of people, it should be equal." Alan, you know how much we love you, man, but you can't agree with both of us. I need you to get off the fence, all right, and pick a side. This show is called Now It's Debatable. It's not called Now I Agree with Everybody. All right, I need you to get off the fence, man. Miss Susie, I think Miss Susie might be getting ready to kick you off the wall, Kathleen. She always brings some heat. She says, you can see that they are black, but I agree with Deon. When a kid hears, look, that boy is like you, and that boy is fast, and that boy is smart, that boy is amazing, and you are too. It is important to acknowledge. Miss Susie, normally I don't do this, but you disagree with me. But it's such a good point, though I still disagree with it, you make the wall. Good job, Miss Susie. Has knocked Kathleen off the wall. Well done. Well done. I'm going to ignore that positivity that you brought to Deon's name.
Can I
But,
ask you a question?
yeah, man, go ahead.
What is the negative about highlighting a diversity? In your opinion, when you say I don't feel the need to highlight the difference, what is that for you?
What it is for me is I'm trying hard and I wish everybody else would try as hard as I am to get to the point where it is, hey, for instance, Deon did a good job on that show that people enjoy. Now it's debatable. Not, hey, Deon, that black comic that I know, he seems to be smarter than I thought he was because I've been watching this show and I just didn't. And he speaks so well, and I just didn't know. Like trying. I wish we could get to. Well, I do not wish we could. We will get there. I don't know for my lifetime, maybe not. But get to the point where they're just. You don't have to highlight these things as if you're surprised by it. Like
Okay,
there's a black scientist who's an astronaut. Okay, that's great. There's a
but what
ton
if
of.
that
Go ahead.
what if that is important to the scientist or the comedian or the athlete? What if their blackness is important? What if they want that to be highlighted? What I'm trying to say is I would want us to get to a place where it wouldn't matter if they were black or white or Chinese or Indian or Hispanic, to the point where we could hear those words and they wouldn't cause that immediate pushback to where, like, oh, here we go, highlighting a difference again. It's like, that shouldn't be the issue. Like, if that is where you draw the line, like, oh, I didn't need to know that, I can tell by looking at him. Well, then why are you even opening your mouth? If you can tell by looking at him, it shouldn't bother you whatsoever. But to that person, it might make all the difference. And I think that is what I'm trying to get people to understand, is that it may not matter to you individually, but to that person and to that group, it might mean the world. And for you to try and diminish that or take it away, or to say that, oh, that's a divisive issue, it's like, why? It's the mainstream for you, it's not the mainstream for them.
It's look. This is how I see these. This is how I see these things. I see these things as if when they see, I'll use myself. When someone sees me, they see whatever preconceived notion they have in their mind. When I speak now, wow, that look of surprise has appeared on their face. Or if I'm out and I'm shopping, people treat me a certain way because they see the color of my skin until they recognize I can buy and sell them every day of the week, twice on Sunday. So that's what I'm saying. This, get away from it. Treat me as you would treat someone who does not look like me. That person who is black, they just happen to be black, but they're smart as shit and obviously driven as hard to be able to be in a position to be an astronaut. The fact that they are the fact that they are a black astronaut does not hold any more significance than the fact that they were an astronaut of any other color.
And what I'm saying is you're never going to get rid of that until you can accept the fact that they're a black astronaut. That's my point, is that this is what they see first. And so whatever preconceived notion that they have about you
Oh,
before
I
you open
understand
your
that.
mouth, I'm saying, before whatever preconceived notion they have about you before you open your mouth, before they see your wallet, that's already there. And the only way to get rid of that is to by bringing it to the forefront, to let people know that they have that bias. And that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that you don't recognize that your mainstream is not the mainstream for everybody else. And until you can see that for a fact and recognize that, you know what? Oh shit, that should everybody I should treat everybody the same regardless of what they look like. It isn't until you register that you don't. that you can actually acknowledge that, oh, I might need to change that. Because I hear people say all the time, I don't see color. I'm like, well, you should, because it matters.
Yeah, but you're
How
not. But those people who are going to see you a certain way based off of your skin tone alone, you're not changing anything because you say there's a black astronaut.
Right, until they speak up on it, until they go, well, why are you highlighting the fact that it's a black astronaut? Why can't it be just a regular astronaut? And that's
Uh,
when we explain to them, because on the norm, on the reg, it's normally not a black astronaut.
Mary Ballard says, I agree with Deon that frequently it does turn negative, and that is a problem. Marissa says, I like the education piece. Facebook user here says, hashtag Team Deon. Who is that? So I can bar them from the show.
they, they must have posted that one on your page and not in the Facebook group where I'm currently watching.
Okay. Facebook user here says, identifying by skin color is the American way. And then Larry Segan says, things should be that way, but they are not. Good conversation. Good job, Kathleen. Good job. I feel like we could talk about this for the entire hour, but we want to make sure we get Chelsea's idea in, question and comment in as well. Deon.
Chelsea was the one that said hashtag Team Deon.
Is that right? Is that right? It looks like we won't be talking about Chelsea's questions.
And Jeanette Trotter said identifying by skin color is the American way. But let's talk about that sentence.
Yeah.
Identifying by skin color is the American way. Now, did black people create that, or did
I almost thought you were gonna say, did Beyonce create?
No, I was gonna say who made that a rule? Who separated us when we first started? It wasn't black people didn't look for this plot in American life. They didn't go, hey, I want you to treat me different because of my skin color. No, the entire time we've been saying, why are you treating me different than you treat everybody else? Like an Irish American can change their last name. A Jewish person could change their last name. You might look at their nose and go, I bet you're Jewish. But it's one of those things where you can see a black person and there's nothing they can do to get you to not immediately recognize the difference. And I think that is the issue, is the fact that the stigma that comes with this skin tone isn't something perpetrated by black people.
And
we didn't create that stigma.
And I could put that black scientist in an astronaut suit, drop him in the backwoods of Tennessee, and have him walk down the street. And the first thing everybody sees, and the only thing they're going to talk about, is that person being black. And we have to try to move away from it. We cannot keep being pushed into that direction. And you and I talked about this.
But you say that like it's a problem.
You and I talked about.
Do you see what I'm saying, though? They're going to say that the only thing that they're going to see is him being black. Well, what is the issue with that? The stigma that comes with that. Well, who created that? And that's what I'm talking about.
What I'm talking about is that person's an astronaut, and you can see they're astronaut, and you don't give a shit that they're an astronaut, even though you can see they're black, any more than if I put it in the news media, in an article or on the television, and tell you that astronaut is black. Yeah, that's cool. But that's a black person. That's all you still think about. So whom are you assisting when you have one person, I believe that was one person, who is black, who's an astronaut, part of the Artemis 2 team? Whom is this helping to keep pushing this narrative about race and sex over and over and over again?
It's helping everyone recognize why they have that bias and why they have that problem with the fact that it's being brought up. If you don't care that person is black or a woman or trans or whatever, then this being highlighted means absolutely nothing. But the second it's brought up, you go, oh, here we go again. You are part of the fucking problem, because you don't want to recognize the difference and you feel like it's being jammed down your throat. Well, I hate to break it to you, but what your norm isn't the norm for everyone else. And the fact that you have to make space in this free country for everyone else should not bother you.
I'm gonna touch on this because I don't want to give it all away, because we talked about it in the bonus Patreon that we do for our Patreon members, and it was a good discussion we had this past Saturday. And if you're not a Patreon member, you should be. To support the show is fine, that's great, but we have some fun conversations, and we got some other great things on there as well. We talked about this briefly, racism and classism. Get me to the point where if you want to talk about someone's race or religion, fine. But let's talk about that socioeconomic start that a lot of people have, where that, as you hate to call, how you hate to hear it, I think sometimes, where they pull themselves up by their bootstraps, because a lot of people do, and they get from point A to point Z where nobody expects them to get to. And if you want to add the fact that this person is Jewish or Irish or black or whatever, along with the fact that they came from a one parent household, or they came from a household where there was domestic violence, or they came from a household where they had to wear their siblings' hand me downs, and there was no. If you want to get to that point, let that be part of the entire description. Because for me, as I've said before, classism is more important, if not just as important, however you want to argue it, as racism. And we talked about that on the Patreon over the weekend. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to give that Patreon episode away. But that's what I would like to see. Let it be included in some of these other things.
Well, classism is just another type of ism, whether it's classism, racism, whatever ism you want to call it. I think identifying it as it for what it is and dealing with it is the only way you get rid of it. Instead of shirking from it and saying, "Oh, I don't want to talk about this," or "Oh, I don't want to recognize this," I think that is the issue: is the fact that the can has been kicked so many times down the road that nobody wants to pick it up and recycle it and get it out of the street so that we don't have to deal it about it in our journey anymore. To me, that is the issue: is that no one is willing to have that conversation because of the fact of what it implies from their belief system. If you can look at me and see me as a black man and not have the stigma behind what my skin looks like before you even hear me speak, I think I've already won. But if you have to hear me speak, or hear, if you're prejudging me based on what I look like, when you shouldn't be, when we all agree that you shouldn't prejudge people before they open their mouths, before they show you the content of their character, if we all agree that all men are created equal, endowed by their creator for inalienable rights, then what is the reason why we don't practice that? And I think that is the issue for me when we talk about diversity and inclusion. Why, when I hear people say, "Why are we highlighting this? Why are we talking about this?" Because we still have that issue to deal with, and until we deal with it, it's not going anywhere.
Miss Susie's, before we get to our next one, I want to make sure we get Miss Susie's comments in. She says, I adopted two black girls and I blocked MTV in the 80s because I didn't want that to be their impression of what black girls could be, half dressed and hanging all over men. And the only positive black girls talked about in history class was Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman. I'm okay with highlighting positive black women. And Miss Susie, I love that you did that. Definitely appreciate you, that you did that. My mother was too cheap for us to have cable, so she didn't have to do that when it came to MTV and my sisters and my sister and whatnot. But she was definitely all about teaching my little sister how to behave and how a woman handles herself around men. I mean, from a very very early age, my mother was she was cracking that whip. Not to use that have to go back to what we talked about earlier today, but my mother was cracking that whip on my sister when it came to how her handle herself and be around men. I remember as when she was as little as 4 or 5 years old, and then sitting in a grown man's lap and that type of thing. I remember getting her little ass popped and getting chastised for that, even though that was an uncle. That was still something that my mother wanted to make sure she reinforced again from a very young age. So love that you did that. Kudos to you. And you know what? That makes the wall next. Miss Susie's knocked her own self off the wall, and she gets a trifecta. But I also think that is something because I see it, and let's touch on this real quick, Dion, before we go to Chelsea's question. That is something I see lacking in girls today of all ages, because you walk through the mall and to see what some of these girls are wearing is like I don't feel like I'm as old as I am sometimes because I'm in good shape and I hang out and I have a good time. But these girls, seeing them at the mall or at the movie theater, wherever, they make me feel like I'm an older man because I'm like, if what is she doing? I start pointing the finger and start like to my grandfather with some of the outfits you see these young girls in when they're outside. Like, who's raising you is what I always turn to my wife and say, who's raising this girl that she would be out here dressed that way? Like, this is okay.
See, and that's where you and I differ again. You can wear whatever the fuck you want to wear. You can behave however the fuck you want to behave. As long as you're willing to accept the consequences of those actions, I'm not going to police you. If wearing a hoe's uniform makes you a hoe, then so be it, right? even if you aren't a hoe, if you got on their uniform, you know what hoes wear. So the fact that you're out here dressed like them, and then somebody approaches you and goes, huh, I think that's a hoe over there. And you excuse me, sir, I'm not a hoe. Well, that classic Dave Chappelle bit. Well, you are wearing a hoe's uniform. So you have to deal with that, right? And part of what I was saying earlier is we can have that conversation to where you're comfortable around young girls, young women, dressed however the fuck they want to dress, and you don't have a problem within yourself of being, oh, I would never let my daughter do that. That's fine. You don't have to let your child or your offspring behave that way. But the fact that you're trying now to police other people, other individuals because of how you feel, I think that's what the issue is. I'm all for the freedom and expression. Feel how you want to feel, but you don't get to take away what other people want to celebrate, whether it be their bodies or their accomplishments.
All right, man. Well, it's a conversation for another day. But you and I, trust me, without me saying anything, we disagree more on this than we do on what we just fucking talked about. Unbelievable,
Look, man, I wouldn't
unbelievable.
I wouldn't want my daughter just like that. But at the end of the day, if we sat down and had a conversation and I explained to her why I had my misgivings and she gave me a competent rebuttal, I could at least respect that. There's a main reason why I stay away from the mall, and it's because it's full of young people I don't want to be around, no matter what they're dressed like. I just don't like being around young people like that. So, you know, I as I get older in life, I start to understand my parents more and more and more as how they were trying to raise me as a young man. And I think as you get older, you need to take in a grain of salt that not everybody's going to be exactly where you are when you are where you're at. So you have to give young people some type of leeway, whether you were allowed to do it or not. I understand the misgivings, but at the end of the day, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I hate rap music nowadays, but young people love that shit. Don't ask me to listen to it, but I ain't trying to take it away from you either.
All right, cool, Modi. If you guys are enjoying the show and if you've never seen me, scroll this at the bottom. This is how you can join our Patreon. It's really simple, really easy, and you can do it for as little as $1. Yes, $1. I saw another.
And let me say that $1 does make a huge difference, even if it's just $1. It
It does
makes a
make a huge.
difference.
It does make a huge difference. But I wanted to make sure people are like, where you get $1 from? I like to do research before I do anything. So I researched a ton of other Patreons that podcasters and comics have, and I looked at the different things that they offer and said, okay, what can we do? Can we do this? Can we do that? Are we able to do this? Do we have the time to do this? Okay, why are they pricing things out? And I saw one. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they had it for $1. And I saw, that's interesting. Let me try it. Let me see what happens. And we had one person sign up for $1. They did theirs for a limited amount. I don't remember what the limit was, but it was for a lot of people. But they had sold out of that $1. I said, what if we'll sell out of this $1? So I set our goal at 200, and we are at 1. So if you're wondering why this man keeps pushing the $1, because I am a goal achiever, and I set a goal for 200 people to just give us $1. So that's what we're talking
199 Patreon members on the wall.
about.
Take one down, pass it around. 198 members in the Patreon now.
All right, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, folks who've already joined the Patreon. We do appreciate you again. We got some great stuff we just put up today. All right, let's go to Chelsea. Chelsea, I hope you're still with us. We're getting to your part of the conversation here. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I saw some more comments here. Kathleen says, absolutely no self-respect, and Lord, it makes even younger men uncomfortable. And Darian Count says, great discussion. Thanks, Darian.
Appreciate that.
Is up. Now he's on the wall. He just knocked Miss Susie off the wall. Now you're on the wall. Thanks for jumping in. All right. Chelsea says she's still with us, and Kathleen says Deon wants those kids off his lawn. LOL.
If they're playing that shitty rap music, you goddamn right.
All right, let's go to Chelsea. So Chelsea's question / comment / paragraph here is, y'all probably already have done this before, but I've always wondered what it was like being a comedian. What are the ups and downs of running any type of show? Worst and best experiences in your career. So she's got a couple of different questions here. She said, what inspires you? What keeps you going? Were there times where you wanted to quit completely? I just enjoy the art and have been really curious to know what the audience doesn't normally see. Deon, let's start with the what inspires us and what kind of keeps us going. Let's kind of start there, I guess.
Well, for me, what inspires me is making people laugh at my perspective. I'm a huge fan of just making people laugh. I feel like laughter is the best medicine. When I was 4 years old, I wanted to be a doctor. Um, I don't have steady hands. I told my dad I wanted to be a brain surgeon. I cut my finger for the first time and I passed out at the sight of my own blood. So I realized at a very young age, probably wasn't going to be a doctor, but I wanted to find a way to help people. And when I came to after passing out, my dad was laughing louder than I ever heard him laugh my entire life up to that point. And so that really triggered something in me to be like, you know what, maybe there's a new avenue. Being funny is something I've been cultivating since I was 4 years old. And the fact that there's a job out there where I can take my sense of humor and give it to people, and in return, they give me a sense of accomplishment and, minuscule amounts of money from time to time, is just a huge plus. To me, getting people in a room who've never heard your voice before to laugh at something that you created is one of the greatest feelings in the world. To me, it's up there with sex. Like, it is that much of a thrill and a bonus for me. I love being able to make people who I've never met before laugh at something that I created. That's just, it's chef's kiss.
Uh, what inspires me at this point is just to be great. Um, and I, I, I kind of got started in it. Well, I grew up kind of a bit of a theater kid, if you will, singing and dancing and that type of thing. I used to always have my. I think I've said this before, but got my siblings.
I can see you in the whiz now.
Hey man, hey, the Wiz is my shit, man. Huge Michael
He's
Jackson,
on down.
huge Michael Jackson fan. Hey, I was the kid that when my parents were entertaining, they would wake me up, get me out of bed, and throw on a song and have me dance and whatever to it and whatnot, and everything, and people would clap and go. And I think for most people who are in entertainment, that joy of hearing people, that sight and sound of hearing people and seeing people be happy with what you're doing and applauding you and praising you and saying, let's go, do more, give us more. I think that's something that's the crack for most people who are in entertainment is we just enjoy that side of it. Um, and so that's what originally inspired me. But at a certain point, what inspired me was just to be great and know as much about it and everything around it as I could. And how could I become a mogul was another thing that, and still is another thing that kind of inspires me when we talk about comedy, but not just comedy, but podcasting and writing and shooting and directing films. How can I be the next great mogul in the entertainment space? So that's something for me. Uh, Deon, I don't know. Did you touch on how often do you think about quitting?
There was only one time in my career where I thought about quitting, and that was when my home club at the time closed its doors. That was probably the lowest I've ever been in my adult life. Is when the Morty's closed the very first time, because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I thought that I was going to work at the comedy club up until my career took off, and at that point, it hadn't really taken off yet. I hadn't been doing comedy that long, and so I wasn't at a point where I could get up on stage anytime I wanted, and I could bump people off and be like, you know what, this person's not going up tonight because I want to work on something new. I wasn't at that point yet. Now here I am, a year coming up year, will be 19. Um, I only thought about quitting that one time, and it was just because I couldn't go to the other comedy club in town. I had already been banned from them. Plus, I worked at their competition, so they weren't really free. You couldn't go back and forth. You had to pick one, and I made my stance very clear. 2 months into my comedy career, that I didn't want to fuck with this other club. So,
That can be a dangerous
of
thing
course,
sometimes.
yeah, of course, I could have moved to a different city, but at that point in my life and in my time, my thought process wasn't just go somewhere else. It was, what am I going to do? Is this something that I can continue to do? Fortunately, the club opened back up, a few months later under new ownership, and I was able to hit the stage relatively frequently. I didn't like part of the new ownership, and so I did stay away for a little bit longer. But um, that was the only time where I ever thought about quitting. For me, comedy is not about the money. Um, I I have a comfortable life now. I could be making a lot more than what I am, but money has never been a motivating factor for me to do anything. So, that's where you and I really, really differ. You want to be a mogul, and I just want to make people laugh.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the other thing that makes us a great team. Because with me, you'll always have a job. So, so
Luckily, I keep cultivating this talent, so I'll give you a reason to hire me.
don't get out of that hallway. That's where Deon Curry's office is. He'll yell at you. Um, I think about quitting all the time, Chelsea. So, and not because I don't love comedy. It's not because I don't love podcasting. It's because I'm just never happy. I'm never happy with where I am at whatever level. I'm happy when I get to whatever level, but I'm always, how do I get to the next place? So while it's not healthy, and I'm the first one to admit it's not healthy, when it comes to my career, I am never happy. I'm always thinking about quitting. Very rarely will you hear me say it. If you hadn't asked this question and we weren't being honest today, I wouldn't be saying it to you right now. Um, Deanna tell you when it comes to this show, I'm always tinkering and how can we make it better? We need to do this. This person is pissing me off. Why did we work with this person? Why did we have that guest on? When it comes to the comedy, I like to think that I'm highly thought of in Arizona. I like to think as far as as being a comic goes. But even that's not enough. Even though this is where I worked hard to get to. Okay, now what's the next thing? So I think about quitting often, um, it all, and just going and working at Amazon. So we're doing something
You'll be back.
just right,
Once you got to use the bathroom and you
just
find out you got to go to a bucket, you'll be like, let me get back on stage.
just random, and yeah. So I don't know. I think when I get to where I know I'm going to get to, I will probably still think about selling the company, telling Dion, bro, this is it. Let's just go fishing. I'm tired of writing. I'm tired
To
of
which
talking.
I will tell you, I hate fishing. It is one of my least favorite hobbies
I,
of all time.
I don't like it either, but it was the first thing that came to my mind that people would do if you quit something. But that's it, man. Let's just pack it in and go figure out something else to do. So I think about quitting all the time, but I love this shit too. So I don't know. Find that balance if you can somewhere in there. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of private people who think about quitting their shit, even if
There's
they're
a lot of people
successful.
who should quit.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that does keep me going because I see people who are ahead of me, and I do think that motherfucker can get that I know I can get. And then I think about that motherfucker way behind me. If I quit, then he'll probably be slid into my spot, and I just can't have that. So, so that too keeps me going too. Good question. You got some more questions in here too, Chelsea. We're going to try to touch on. I know this may not be interesting to everyone, but if it is, let us know that you're there. We would love to hear from you. Because we're going to keep going because we're trying to get into the habit of answering these questions and not cutting them short, no matter what. So let's know you guys are still there if you are. Let's see here. What inspires you, experiences in your career? Worst and best experiences, Dion. Give us one worst and one best.
So, hands down, my worst experience happened in Cleveland right after the NBA Finals. LeBron James had just lost to Golden State Warriors for the first time, and we're doing this show, and uh, it was the second show. They hadn't told me that the show had started, and so I didn't know that the show had started. The MC had been on stage and did his thing, and he had announced me, and I didn't even know the show had started because I thought we were waiting for more people to show up. So they come and get me. They're like, "Oh, you're supposed to be on stage." So when I go out on stage, the audience is already unsettled. I still have the recording of it, and I listen to it every time I get too high on myself about how good I am at comedy. I listen to that show where no one wanted to give me the benefit of the doubt other than like the 5 or 10 people in the very front of the room, where I had this guy who was heckling me, like, get off the stage. Of everybody in the room, I was the only person who wasn't allowed to leave. And I think people don't understand that there's a contract that you sign when you agree to do a show that you're going to do X amount of time. And so, in order to get paid, you have to do that X amount of time. Otherwise, they can say you breach a contract, and so you won't. you won't get the money that you were promised.
Absolutely.
So Cleveland was by far the worst show. The best show that I've ever done. I don't know how to quantify that. There have been shows where I loved them for whatever reason. Um, Oklahoma City is probably the best city that I performed in as far as the gradual progression of the shows from Wednesday to Saturday night. Each show got amazingly better each time, and the very first show was wonderful. Those crowds were super hot. I once did a show for 4 people, um, and we did like a popcorn style. Um, it was me and 4 other comics: Marion Seark, Andy Kindler, um, the former owner of Morty's, who I'm not going to say his name, and me, where we would all tell a joke, and then the next person would come up, and we did it like a round robin for these 4 people because for whatever reason, everybody else who bought tickets didn't show up, and we were like, they're here, let's give them a show. And so we just did this lightning round type of everybody tell a joke. And then it was one of the funnest shows I've ever done. Granted, there wasn't a lot of people there, and there's not like anybody's gonna go spread the word about how awesome I was. But it was to see those 4 people enjoy it as much as they did because we were willing to put on that show instead of just canceling it was one of the better memories that I had.
One of the worst shows I've ever done, and this was recent. I've done comedy 15 years. I like to say there, give or take a month or two, and I've never been booed. I've had black people get up and walk out. I've had people not show up at all. I've had white people get up and walk out. I've had groups of people of all races just get up and walk out all at once, all in unison. Decide, well, we don't like that. Never have I been booed until sometime last year. I was working my home club, Stand Up Live, and I won't mention the headliner at all. Not because it had anything to do with him, just because I don't want to mention him. Uh, and I came out, and within the first 30 seconds of being on stage, hadn't even got the punchline out, I heard boo. I just turned. I said, "What are you booing?" And they continued to boo throughout my set. Off and on. I think they booed probably about 7 or 8 times before I was done. But like Deon says, I'm here to do a job. I must complete said job, no matter what is happening. If you're a professional, so I get off the stage and it wasn't me. The audience booed every comment that came onto the stage, including the headliner got booed at certain times. There were people on their cell phones down front who he kicked them out. There were regulars who would come out to see me no matter where I was at, and they walked up to me like, "What the hell was that?" I said, "I have no idea what happened," and everyone was a little befuddled. But that by far was the worst show for me. Was getting booed, I think, because again, I'd never been booed, and I didn't quite know how to handle it. The Sidney inside me knew how he wanted to handle it, but the professional Dion laughs because he knows. But the other side of me maintained. But that was by far the worst. Um, I tell people often that the best time in my career was probably I did the store, and there were some great hitters there, and I got to hang out and chat with them, and got some great tips and of the trade and things from them. Whitney Cummings, Sarah Silverman, it was great. That's why these 2 pictures are here, not because of any other reason. That I enjoy both of them, but they were so good to me. There's other pictures here you can't see as well, but these 2 are here because they were so good to me on this particular night. It kind of increased my confidence in a lot of different aspects, and made me sure of some things, some choices that I wanted to make. So that's why they're there right over my shoulder. But I think the most special moment for me in my career was the first time I went out to perform in California. I hadn't even gotten into the clubs here yet, but I had met some people, and they said, "Yeah, come out, do the show." And it was just a couple of bar shows. It was no big thing. And I went out to do the shows, and I was in Echo Park, and I remember going across the street, and there was this young white girl standing next to me on the corner. And as I crossed the street, and if you've ever been to California, you got to be very careful when you cross the street in California. Very careful. And so you got to wait for that light. You can't do what you might do someplace else and just think you're going to cross against the light. So I stepped out, and there was a Ford Explorer coming, and I'm running across it. I want to be late for this show, but I hear poof, and I turn around. This Explorer has hit this white girl, and this and this this white girl jumped up and dusted herself off and said, "I'm okay, I'm okay." And I just, I just stood there, and everybody comes running over, and they know you gotta lay back down. You're probably concussed. The driver gets out, and two things cross my mind. One, they're very polite here because back in Detroit, that driver would have sped off. First of all. And two, man, they are really, really concerned about this girl. And man, they got some tough bitches in California because you just jump up that buck. You gotta hit me with an Explorer. I don't know what I would have did, but I had such a great
My
time.
neck, my back, my neck, and my back.
all of that, all of that. But I had such a great time there, and the shows were fun. Again, they were just bar shows. They weren't anything special. My first trip out, but I remember waking up and calling my wife, and she's like, "How did it go?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, it's great, it's great." We weren't married at the time. I said it was great, man. The energy, I love it here, and I still love LA, especially West Hollywood. Whenever I'm there, I said we got to get here, we got to get here. And the only thing she said to me was, "What do we have to do to get there?" And I knew then. I didn't tell her at the time, but I knew then I was going to marry her. So that would probably be one of the best times, if not the best time I've ever had in my career. Best moment in my career. Um, even that's one thing I think about with comedy. When I think about wanting to quit, man, I think about some of the things that it's given me.
The best time of your comedy career was a white girl getting hit by a Ford Explorer, and you and your wife being like, "Let's move to LA."
No, no, no. My wife,
If the first 48 ain't watching, you are going to be the first suspect after that story.
no, the girl get hit by the Explorer is just off to the side. I just wanted to share that story, but the best part was the conversation with my wife. That's been the best part. Comedy's given me so much. Like, it's given me my brotherhood with Deon. It's given me my wife. It's given me some very other good friends. My two mentors as well. So those are some other things I think about when I think about quitting this bullshit we call comedy. Hopefully people are still watching. Hopefully. That was a story there. Mary Ballard says, very interesting. Mary Ballard says, God, I'm glad I wasn't at that show, Sidney. And then Mary Ballard says, oh, sweet Sidney. So Mary's still watching at least. So I don't know if everybody else is on.
Chelsea's still here.
Okay, I was going to say, we doing the show for Mary. All right, let me make sure I touch on everything here for Chelsea. What are the ups and downs of running any type of show? Deon, I'll let you answer this one quickly.
I cannot stand being in charge of a show. The ins and outs is you have to book it, you have to give people time, you have to create the spots, and then usually you have to micromanage everything from ticket sales to the lighting and the sound. And for me, that's not something where I want to focus my time and energy on. I hate producing shows. I can make a lot of money doing it if I wanted to, but for me, the payoff is never worth it. I don't like being in charge of other people when it comes to getting them to commit and do a good job, the type of job that I know that I'm going to do. And so trying to hold other comics' feet to the fire, so to speak, in order to get them to perform the way that I expect the show to go is a giant hassle. A lot of people are not as professional as they should be, even though I might be friends with them. I'll be like, you know what? I don't want to work with you because I know that your lack of professionalism will reflect on me. And that's just something that I don't want to, I try not to mix those things. If I ever do book a show, it's usually somebody I know who's going to do a good job, and I don't have to worry about what they're going to say, or they're going to offend my crowd or that type of thing. So just show running is not in the cards for me. I do not like it personally, but it is a necessary evil at some point in your career.
I enjoy it. I've done it for almost my entire career. I've gotten better at it. I feel like I'm probably the best showrunner that I know. Um, I feel safe in saying that. I do have quite a few comics who come behind who are trying to do it now, who tried it before, I'm a, I can always share a little bit of wisdom, and they normally seek me out. So I feel like I've done a pretty good job at it, a really good job at it actually. It does have its headaches. There's certain things you need to learn when it comes to producing a show. Given whatever area you're in, you're going to have some times that are going to be leaner than others. So maybe you don't want to produce shows certain times of the year. And so just things like that you learn. Again, you learn what comics. The one thing that I wish I could do is have the door open for more comics to walk through and do it, but I'm very picky. Last year, I had to tell a comic who showed up late. I think he was 7 or 8 minutes late. You're not going on. You can come and sit down and watch, but you're not going on. He turned around and walked out. I had no problem with that because everybody knows, one, I've been doing this long enough, everybody knows how I get down. I'm completely professional. I expect for you to be on time. In fact, I asked the talent, to be there no earlier than 30 minutes before the show starts. I myself, whether it's my show or anybody else's show, I'm there at least an hour early. So I don't even ask you to do what I would do. I I advise you to do that for your own career, but I don't make anyone do it. So I enjoy it, and it's something that I foresee that being um, another spoke in my will down the road. That'll be something that it will also be a function of my mogul status as well. So I enjoy it. It definitely is a pain in the ass. You can make a lot of money, but there's some nights where you don't make any. Last year I did a particular show for almost the entire year without really pushing for the money because I was interested in seeing if the concept would work and if I can get the legs up on it. So if you're a situation where you're a show producer and you have to do it for the money, I think it can be more of a pain in the ass. I know those guys. It can be more of a pain in the ass for those guys if that's what you're doing it for. But you got to just find whatever it is important in it for you in getting it done and why you will be doing it. See you smiling when you
Ch-
smile.
Chelsea just made a comment that's going to make the wall for sure.
Says I've been to a lot of shows and dated someone who thought he could host a show. And Sidney, you are definitely the best host in AZ, hands down. God damn it, that's on the wall. Chelsea, Chelsea, that might need to be put on a shirt. Man, I can't get this on the wall fast enough. Somehow
you, you made
I
you made him slap the desk, Chelsea.
yeah, that man, God damn it, Chelsea. Girl, let me get my sound effects up here.
If I didn't know her nose was white, I'd say it's brown.
Yeah, bro, I gotta. Be quiet. Make sure she hears those sound effects. Stop talking, Deon. Man, give me. That's a lot of words, Chelsea. Otherwise, I put that on a button. That's good. See right there, Marissa said it's true, Chelsea. Girl, y'all need to stop. There, boom, up there again on the wall. Something up to the top of my outstanding. Man, sometimes it's just your night, Deon. Sometimes. All right, Chelsea, thank you for the questions. And thank you, Kathleen, for the question. Good show tonight. You guys really helped us out on this one. This is something we want to do again. You guys are so instrumental um, to the show that we want to try to find ways to kind of include you guys wherever we can. So thank you guys for playing a part. I'm not sure if Robert is watching it all, but Robert, thank you for your question. Sorry we didn't pick yours up this time, but maybe next time. And Roxy, again, maybe she'll watch it later, but Roxy, thank you for your question. But your question was going to require homework. And we probably want to have you on actually to kind of have this discussion. So thank you again, Roxy, for giving us your question as well. And I think Larry had hit us with something too. He did. Larry, that question was answered on the Patreon, sir. All right. Before we get out of here, we got to do it. Deon, the floor is yours, sir.
What the hell is up with another mass shooting? We got one more this morning in Louisville. A friend just texted me saying that there was a copycat shooter again in Louisville, and the suspect still at large as we were doing this episode. So
Wow. Wow.
I
Wow.
don't know what we
Wow.
can do as a country, but all I know is all the other countries that ban these
Wow.
assault weapons don't have this problem. So they can't be that much different from us. We have got to do something to curtail the frequency of this situation. At this point, I'm open to whatever suggestions there are out there, no matter how far fetched they are, because I'm just sick and tired of getting the news that another group of people has been gunned down by some crazy person with a gun.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm gonna let that stand for our what the hell this week. Actually, well said by my brother Deon. So he's gonna be the only one that throws one up on the wall or up out there to the atmosphere this time. But well said, brother. I don't know either. I don't know. I'm at a loss. But my heart goes out. Everyone out there, if you have family members that go to the school for work, I don't care if they're the lunch lady. I don't care if they're whatever they have for jobs now. I don't know. I haven't been to school in years, but school teachers, obviously, principals, so on and so forth. Pray for them, hold them close, keep them in your hearts throughout the day. And same thing for people out there who have young children who are still going to school. The honestly said best. I don't know. I don't know. I don't need anything. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words too. Good show though. Good show.
Yeah,
Bad
thank you
segue, but
everybody
good show. Thank you guys.
for tuning in. Make sure you guys check out the Patreon if you haven't already. Minimum $1. That's $12 a year. It goes a long way to help the show. And as Master Debaters, we appreciate all your support, whether you're a Patreon member or not. Please hit that share button and tell a friend to tell a friend.
Thank you, Mary. Love you too. And thank you for letting us know it's another great show. We appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Have yourself a great week. Stay safe. Hold your loved ones close.